Many states and localities across the nation, but particularly in the South, are dealing with the Supreme Court's decision from earlier this year striking down a central provision of the Voting Rights Act. This is the story of one such town.
Pasadena is the second largest city in Harris County. We are right next to Houston.
You take in Baytown and the Ship Channel, we're the petrochemical complex of the world.
Like many southern towns, Pasadena has a large minority population. In fact, as a whole, Hispanics make up a majority of Pasadena's population, 62%, though only 32% of the voters. The Hispanic population is also concentrated in particular parts of Pasadena.
The northwestern part of the city is the oldest part of the city. Predominantly Hispanic, I'd say 80% Hispanic, if not more.
The city is governed by a mayor and a city council. The council's 8 members are elected from separate districts, each representing a section of the city. At least in part for that reason, 2 Hispanics won seats on the council in the last election. But this week, the city will vote on a proposal put forth by the mayor that would change the system to have only 6 individual districts, while the other 2 seats would be elected at large by the voters of the city as a whole. Explanations for the change vary.
Johnny Isbell. First time I was elected mayor is 1981. My fear when they went to single-member districts, even though I voted for it, I was afraid that each councilman in the single-member districts would take it as their little kingdom. They don't care about the whole city. I hate it when I hear the north side of Pasadena and the south side of Pasadena. We're one Pasadena.
My name is Darrell Morrison, and I've been on city council 4.5 years. I'm for anything that gives more power to the people. If a citizen is not pleased with the response they get from their single-member district, and this counts me, they can go to these 2 at-large members and get help.
Councilmember Ronaldo Ibarra, I've been a council member for 4 years, and people are going to tell you that it's more representation. Baloney. This is about power. The mayor realizes that in single-member districts, a good campaigner can get elected. And if it stays this way in single-member districts in 2015, then he loses his majority.
There are concerns that, perhaps unintentionally, the change will reduce Hispanics' voting power. The most active voters in the city tend to live in its southern, predominantly Anglo neighborhoods. Councilmember Pat Van Hout.
The people who run at large, they're likely to campaign most and do follow-up most in the area where the votes are. There is a good likelihood that the South Side would elect the 2 at-large people.
Until this July, the entire proposal would have been moot unless it was pre-approved by the U.S. Department of Justice or a federal court in Washington. That is because Pasadena is in Texas, which is among the jurisdictions that Congress, in the Voting Rights Act, required to pre-clear any change to their voting systems. The statute is very unusual. Most of the time, you have to file a suit after you have been injured. But Congress concluded that if potentially discriminatory changes were not blocked in advance, then a never-ending series of new ones could be adopted as soon as the old ones were challenged. But that preclearance rule has long been very unpopular with the jurisdictions that have to follow it. Lawyer Burt Ryan represented Shelby County, Alabama this year in arguing that the law was unconstitutional.
Is this killing a fly with a sledgehammer? A fair question, because when you start to invade core functions of the states, I think that a great deal of caution and care is required.
That argument prevailed by a slender 5-4 vote, with Chief Justice Roberts concluding for the majority that the original discrimination of the Old South had passed, so that Congress would need to make new findings justifying subjecting the same states and localities to the law's intrusion.
The Act imposes current burdens and must be based on current political conditions.
Pasadena's mayor explains that the ruling created the opportunity to change to the at-large system that will be voted on this week. Why now, did you decide?
Because the Justice Department can no longer tell us what to do, obviously. We can't discriminate. You have to have the district still within 10% of the population, which you have to comply with that, and we should.
Dissenting from the Supreme Court's decision, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg worried that the justices were opening the door to more subtle forms of discrimination, including the use of just this kind of at-large voting system.
These second-generation barriers included racial gerrymandering, switching from district voting to at-large voting.
If Pasadena's voters adopt the new system, Hispanic advocates are not powerless to bring a court challenge to try and prove that it does substantially undermine their voting power. But given the costs and the uncertainty of prevailing, they may decide to work within it.
We'll adjust if it gets approved by voters to ensure that the people that live in North Pasadena have representation citywide. So maybe I'll run at large.